And hey, everybody, Pastor G here, along with, to coin a phrase from the Daily Wire, the God King of Fighting the Void, Ginger himself.
Well, I'll go along with that small g, small
I was
k.
going to say small g, small k.
Yes.
I'll make that quite clear there. But I just wanted to let you guys know that we've been talking about this for a while. We're finally going to be doing the last Starfighter live stream today. We're here to talk. Oh, sorry about that. We're here to talk about the Last Starfighter itself, the cult classic, and I'm going to turn this thing down here. Also, talk about the upcoming sequel, which apparently was announced in October of this year, and I was not aware of it until Nerd Cookie's video. She posted a video talking about the announcement, and then I found, I will share later, a sci-fi article talking about it. So we can talk about possible, I'd say possible storylines that you and I can come up with, stuff that I would love to see them do. And you and I were on our last stream together. You and I were just totally bouncing off of that, and I wanted to kind of go more into detail about what are some thoughts, and hopefully if we got I invited some people to come into the chat to share their thoughts as well. So if not, definitely leave a comment below on what your thoughts are as far as what you'd like to see in The Last Starfighter 2, and also your experiences with The Last Starfighter. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Should have gotten more attention? And go from there. So I'm going to start out with you, Ginger, and I wanted to ask you, do you remember when you first saw The Last Starfighter? Because it came out in '84. I was 4 years old at that time, so I didn't see it in theaters.
I definitely did not see it in theaters. I know that. I don't know the first time that I watched this movie. It was in all honesty, it was probably on HBO.
Okay.
Would be my guess. But I remember, basically, as far back as I can remember liking movies, I remember liking this movie. Because it's one of the shining examples of a very small niche genre that was big in the 80s, and it's basically adolescent wish fulfillment movies. Yeah. And it includes The Last Starfighter, Goonies, Iron Eagle, things like that, where it's just random normal person winds up doing something extraordinary. And even as I say that phrase, it occurs to me that one of the reasons that those movies, I think, resonated so much with me and with so many people, really, even to current people who just get exposed to Last Starfighter or that similar realm of movies, it's the modern fairy tale. Because the old fairy tales, in contradiction to the modern superhero movie, it was always an ordinary person who wound up doing something extraordinary. Now, maybe it turns out that that's a secret princess or secret prince, whatever, but they at the very least, they lived their lives as an ordinary person.
Exactly.
And you suddenly find out they have something within them, even if it's just normal, ordinary, everyday courage that allows them to step up and accomplish something just amazing. And I think that's what really resonated with me about the Last Starfighter in particular, because he's a more or less normal kid. Well, he's roughly 18 or something in the movie.
Yeah.
And he plays video games just like I played video games, and he grew up in a trailer park, which I actually grew up in a trailer park, not that much of a trailer park, mind you, more the mobile home type trailer park. But still, I was like, there was a lot of places where I could identify with that guy. And let's face it, Maggie was really cute. Let's be honest. that helps when you're a young pre-adolescent watching this movie.
Actually, and I've seen some more recent pictures of her. She's still very, very good looking.
Oh yeah, she still looks really good, especially for her age. I mean, and especially since she's not like A-list Hollywood starlet. That's how she really looks. That's not like that's not how she looks with the help of Lord knows how much plastic surgery.
Yeah,
You
she hasn't been corrupted. Is basically.
Yeah, it's honestly that's probably not a bad way to put it.
Yeah,
But
Hollywood.
yeah, I don't know.
It corrupts. I tell you what, and oh man, it's made some people just absolute. I'm not even gonna say the words on the stream, because one, my 12-year-old son made it to the stream. So, hello, Dark Comet. I love you. You're awesome. Happy 12th birthday, belated birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, he just celebrated his 12th birthday.
That's awesome.
So basically, let's see. I'm trying to say, I was 4 years old when it came out, so obviously I didn't see it in theaters either. It was the same situation for me. I was probably I don't remember how old I was at the time. I remember I was a young kid and I saw the movie and it was the same exact reaction. It's like, oh wow, I love video games, and this guy, same situation with you, is that a normal everyday guy all of a sudden gets recruited by what looks like like the Star League, which is like basically Star Wars, Star Trek, almost a Federation type thing, which we'll talk about later. But the idea that it was all because of a video game, I'm like, that is totally awesome, because one of them was a video game
high score.
Oh yeah, I got the high score, in just this off the beaten path trailer park, and I remember watching a special about it, and it was, the original thought was they were going to have this take place in like a suburban type town, and instead they changed it to this trailer park, and making the story just that much more extraordinary, just this more rural, more poor type situation, and it just, I guess it added to the dynamic of it, which a lot of people related to, and myself included. And it was just
the simple poor kid.
The simple poor kid. And I mean, the storyline is amazing, on top of how they use a video game to recruit this guy. Also, the soundtrack is just straight up amazing. I was just listening to it on YouTube the other day when we were talking about, kind of mentally prepping for the stream, and I'm like, man, on YouTube there's a video it's called the Last Starfighter Suite, and it's about a half hour long, and it just plays pretty much all of the background score of this movie, and I'm like, wow,
that's awesome.
It brought back so many memories. It was insane.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Can we just take a minute to appreciate whoever was in charge of like naming everything in this movie? Honestly, Star League.
Oh yeah,
check, awesome, right?
Yes.
Gunstars.
Yes, Gunstars.
Awesome.
Rylos.
That's a pretty good name for a planet. Centuri. Right. That's a great name for an alien.
Yeah.
It's like whoever was in charge. Zur, the Kodan Armada. It's like, this whoever was most responsible for all of these names, and even the trailer park, Starlight, Starbright, perfect for the movie, right? Oh, and it's and what were the names of the bad guys? They like the mercenary things that he's sent after them.
Oh gosh. Oh, oh man, that's gonna bug me now. But yeah, it came down to like
so on point. Really.
Oh yeah, well the writer or the team of writer. All I know is that the guys that were in charge of making this movie did a fantastic job. I mean, you're talking early '80s, and the CGI was just 2 years after Tron. Tron came out in '82, and this was '84, and it was just innovative for its time. And people were just blown away by the CGI and how they were. This basically was just like Tron 2.0. They because Tron was meant to be like a video game, where this was supposed to be like, instead of doing like special effects involving miniature puppets models and stuff, like so models and such, they did CGI. And for '84, you have to admit, I mean, that's just insanely awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, for 1984, that's pretty good. Now, obviously, it's dated by today's standards,
right?
But still, somebody's got to be first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and as far as I know, it did mediocre in the box office.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me that it didn't do well in theaters. But by golly, it's definitely had legs that no one really saw coming.
Well, I think what one of the issues it was having is it had really big competition at that time, but I can't remember what movies were competing with it.
84? I can't think of anything. I think Jedi was 85, so it wouldn't be that.
It wouldn't have been. I don't think it would have been Jedi. But there were some issues with either when it was released that caused it to not get as much tension as it normally would have. It had a budget about 14 or 15 million, which is
huge for the time.
Yeah, for 84, that's a good amount of money. So I can't imagine. I'm trying to think. I looked it up a while ago and I completely forgot. Go figure. But all I know is that between the storyline and the ships and the story, basically
Blossom.
oh gosh, and that's the thing.
It's freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, and there is so much potential to make a complete utter universe out of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that it kind of like with Stargate, it has an element of like us being into that genre. Like it's just like in Stargate, it's like us in the 20th or 21st century stepping through that gate. It's like us stepping into the Gunstar. It relates to Alex Rogan is basically like one of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You get it. It's almost like you're a part of like, wow, like what would happen if we were actually recruited by this big Star League to defend Earth and against the Kodan Armada and all that stuff, and it's just us in our current state of technology flying into a Gunstar that's obviously light years ahead of our time, even now in 2020.
Yep.
And that's the other thing about the Gunstar. This thing, I would hate to go against it in any other, like, you think about the X-Wing or a TIE fighter from Star Wars, or even the I don't know if you're a Babylon 5 watcher,
no,
but the Star Fury, which is one of my other favorite starfighters, is something. I love the design of the Star Fury because it's a lot more maneuverable. It's got like an X-Wing look to it, but you can, like, the thrusters on all four of the wings and all that, you can actually turn yourself in many different directions. But a Gunstar would destroy all this in a heartbeat. Look what one Starfighter did to the Kodan Armada.
Well, and I was thinking about the design of the Gunstars and everything, and it really it didn't sink into me ever until just this time I rewatched it recently, and the gunfighters, the starfighters.
Are you talking about X-Wings?
No. What are they called? The names of the guy? What was Alex Rogan? He wasn't just a. They didn't call him a starfighter. I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, he's a starfighter.
Okay.
Are you talking about Gunstars or?
No. The name of the title for the gunners.
Oh, I think it's just Starfighter.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because it's like you hear it, "Greetings, Starfighter."
Yes. Yeah, obviously. And it's the last Starfighter.
Yes, the last Star.
Sorry, I have a Biden moment. I'm sorry, everybody. Not enough coffee.
Believe it or not, it happens to gingers too, just not as often as blondes.
Anyway. It does, exactly. So anyway, the Starfighters.
Yes.
It occurred to me that they're just gunners.
Mm-hmm.
They're not it didn't occur to me until like this last time. It's like, they're not actually flying the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find interesting. So it's the Gunstar itself is a very unusual design for a starfighter in a movie.
Yeah,
and it's designed to keep to take a lot of punishment.
Yeah,
and the maneuverability really isn't the maneuverability of the fighter itself. It's the fact that you can point and shoot the guns anywhere, basically.
Right.
That's where the real strength of this particular design lies, and of course that's why the starfighters, the gunners, are really as important as they are. It's just such a such a different concept, and I wonder if the whole reason they designed the gun stars that way is because they knew they were going for attacking this from a video game standpoint. And it was like, well, essentially this game is going to be an FPS, even though I don't think that term existed at the time.
Right.
And they just built the gun star around that idea that you could translate something that you could easily translate from a video game to real life is, oh, I'm sitting in front of a screen and pointing and shooting at things that are coming at me. It's actually pretty clever on the part of the people who were making the movie.
Oh yeah, it is, and it was a concept that I didn't really understand at the time when I watched it, because I imagine you'd have to. The thing is, it doesn't matter how much of a good gunner you have; you also got to have somebody that's a good pilot. And luckily for him, he had Grieg, who ended up surviving the onslaught from Zur, and who was played by the actor who, and I didn't know this, but you remember the original RoboCop? I think it was RoboCop 2. He was the CEO of OCP Industries. He was the old. Yeah, it was him who played a really good bad guy.
No kidding.
I had no idea about that.
You would never guess.
No, I'd never get, and he's Irish too, and it just cracked me up to hear the background of that. But I remember he played his character was amazing and played such a good role in that movie. I remember really liking him, and I loved it at the end when he visited Earth and encountered people, and how funny it is in a trailer park. Aliens visit. It's just so stereotypical.
Obviously. If it's not tornadoes, it's aliens, right?
Yeah, they're used to that kind of stuff, I guess. But back to what you're talking about with the gun stars. The gun stars are basically like the Hulk or behemoth of sci-fi starfighters. Yeah, if you think about it, because you saw how it took a beating with its armament. I don't remember if there was shield. I don't think there were shields, so to speak, like the X-Wings have.
No, it's
a beast. It can take, and another. I'm might be jumping back and forth here, but it didn't make sense to me how you have the Star League, which is basically like the equivalent of the Federation, only the obviously the capital planet is Rylos.
Now, are we talking about the Star Trek Federation or the Galactic Federation that just doesn't think it's time to contact us yet?
Well, in comparison, I see what you're talking about now. Since I don't really know about this federation too much, I'm going to just talk about the United Federation of Planets from Star Trek.
Okay.
But obviously, because when the idea you get is that it's obviously an alliance of various different worlds into one federation, just like the United Federation of Planets, because you saw multiple different species that were starfighters. Yep. The only thing that kind of intrigued me a little bit is like, okay, well, obviously Rylos was the capital planet, and they attacked Rylos and crippled the Star League. And to me, it's like, okay, well, if you are a bunch of different planets, obviously aligned for one Star League, why would Rylos? Is it like Rome? All roads lead to Rylos? Because, like, how could there be only one starfighter left?
Why would there just be one base? Yeah,
right. I mean, your eggs are really, that's a strategic boo-boo right there. If all your eggs are in one basket like that,
I'm going to go ahead and just headcanon this and say there were actually meteor strikes. They planet bombed all the other bases too. We just focused on the one in Rylos. I'm going with that.
Okay, and you know what? That would be a good explanation because it's sci-fi and you can pretty much go anywhere you want.
Exactly.
That's the beautiful part about sci-fi. It's like, well, we only focused on Rylos, but all the other planets got devastated too, which makes sense.
It's interesting too. Isn't it cool how so many times in sci-fi that we end up going with basically launching freaking asteroids at a planet? I mean, seriously, you've got obviously you've got Last Starfighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they literally call it a meteor gunner. It's just cool. We're just going to shoot rocks at you. And it's going to be devastating because, of course, it would be.
Well, basically like a space cannon, because a cannonball is basically a big metal ball that goes at you. There's no explosion, you know. So, I mean, why not? You know, let's just shoot meteors.
Exactly. And then you've got, you've got Starship Troopers, which you've got the bugs launching plasma charges out of their rear ends to knock ass. I mean, these bugs were clearly really good at math. And knocking them out of orbit of their own planet so they would hit us.
Right.
It's just
right.
Yeah, but in any case, meteors, and then of course the classic series Star Blazers, also known as Space Battleship Yamato, which that was Earth getting devastated by planet bombs from the Gamelons.
Right.
It's just
that one I didn't watch.
Good. Oh man, you've got to go and watch that. That's another series I could just go on and on about how utterly awesome it is, and it's the same sort of thing. There's a lot of adolescent wish fulfillment in that movie.
Okay.
Because it's similar to Battlestar Galactica in that you've got like this one ship against the whole alien empire sort of thing, and they just keep pulling it up. Pulling wins out of impossible situations. It's amazing. Definitely look it up. In fact, and then we'll get back to Last Starfighter. But on Funimation, it's an anime app. I think you can watch it for free on that. I watched the $21.99 kind of remake of it on there, but I think they've got the original series on there too. Pay no attention to the science in it. It's woefully inaccurate. Doesn't matter. It's awesome. And the theme song is still one of the best theme songs I've ever heard. I put it up there with the theme song from the 90s X-Men.
Okay. And what's the app that you said that you can find this on?
Funimation.
Funimation. Okay, I'll keep that in mind, because I'm any ideas of open to any ideas basically right now of new sci-fi stuff.
It's good stuff. And it's the original series was like the first anime series to basically cross over the Pacific to the United States.
Mm-hmm. So
and actually be successful.
Oh, it's Japanese in origin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Maybe Lethal Lightning might tell me about that too. He's really big into anime and all that kind of stuff.
If he's big into anime, he knows Space Battleship Yamato. Absolutely.
Okay. The thing is like, considering that everything has just been going on as far as entertainment nowadays, which is, I mean, I think we're going to touch up a little bit on it when we're talking about the possible sequel ideas to Last Starfighter, but I am always now viciously cautious about anything that comes out. If they want to reboot something that we've come to know and really love, or they want to make a sequel to it, they're adding all these woke elements to it that's just making it just unbearable and just destroying what we've come to know and love. Unfortunately, it's happened to Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. Just some of the awful writing, because you know what, people just aren't creative nowadays, and that's why you're seeing so many reboots, and possibly part of that situation is why we're seeing a Last Starfighter sequel now, because people are craving something, like people like us, people like the people I talk to, like, Mara and Lethal Lightning and everybody else that I've been interacting with, people of the Phantom Menace and stuff like that. We're craving good writing. We're craving good storylines with the awesome technology. Good characters with the awesome technology we have now. We have some amazing technology, but we just have some crappy writing.
Yes. Yes, we do. And of course it's partially because it's all trying to wedge their stupid woke messages into previously existing properties that just, at the very least, it doesn't fit.
No, and unnecessary.
Yeah. And the thing is, if they're trying to get their diversity quotas and everything in, Last Starfighter doesn't need you to do that for it at all.
No,
it was, because you had, especially for the time, a relatively diverse main cast, and especially since yes, there was only one black guy, but
right.
there were a wealth of other characters that Alex's mom, Maggie, these were not shrinking violet female characters by any means.
Right.
In fact, there is no there is no moment where Maggie is a damsel in distress.
No.
Actually, that doesn't happen at all. And of course, you have a whole host of alien characters that
Right.
could be anything, and it doesn't matter. And also, you have again, you mentioned the scene at the end where all the trailer park people are interacting with Greg, and nobody is there's very little, oh my gosh, he's different, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Obviously there is a little bit because you just came down on a spaceship,
right,
and that's understandable, but everybody quickly chills. And before you know it, and a lot of this has to do with Greg's easy manner,
right,
before you know it, it's pretty clear within like a minute and a half, they see him as just another person, even if he has an unusual point of origin.
right. He became accepted fairly easily. Like the one lady said, "Oh my God, a monster," and he kind of shrugged it off. He's like, "Monster," and how properly he said it too.
He was just like, whatever.
I remember that, and of course, she quickly changed her tune the moment they started to get to it. It was for the time, because it was 84. I think that the fact that they all, it was a diverse crowd, men and women. There was one black guy, but he actually was pretty prominent in.
He was actually pretty important to it.
Oh yeah, he was pretty prominent in inspiring Alex Rogan, and that's the thing. Like, and talking about Maggie, Maggie is also like, she wasn't a damsel in distress. It's actually more of a partnership between the two of them. There wasn't a clear dominance between Alex and Maggie. And then again, the mom, who's she's a working mom.
She's a single mom, working hard to try to support both of her boys.
Yeah. And it's a struggle for her because, one wants to go to, Alex wants to go to college. He wants to go to a university, obviously. And he did not get accepted. And that was a big struggle of hers because, you could tell like she was devastated. It's like, I don't want to see my oldest son, because especially with all the potential he has, he's obviously, got big dreams, and she can't afford to get him to, the college that he wants. And that's a struggle that a lot of single moms have. And he catches his big break in space.
Who saw that coming, right?
Yeah.
Century, apparently, but that's about it.
The little brother, he cracks me up, and the funny part about him is that he's actually, now the actor that played him is actually 47 now. This is going to be very interesting to see, when they do the sequel, because it's supposed to be a sequel, and it's supposed to take place in our time, according to what I've read. I've got an article from Sci-Fi up here. Plus,
it's taking place in real time.
It's taking place in real time.
Awesome.
So, because I think what they want to do, they want to incorporate Lance Guest, the guy that played Alex Rogan, and I don't know if they've mentioned whether they've gotten Maggie or who other people that were part of the original cast, but a lot of them were older.
Well, after I watched that Nerd Cookies show that was talking about it, I watched an interview with both Lance Guest and I can't remember the actress's name that played Maggie, and she did mention that they were talking about it and everything. So I think she's going to be in it, which is great, because gosh, I mean you can't do it without her and Lance. There's just no way.
It is based off their kids,
right? It's as one would expect, and there have been a handful of these many decades later sequels that have been really good. The one that sticks in my mind right now is, of course, Rocky Balboa, the sixth Rocky movie, which honestly I rank just behind the first one. It's really good, and it makes use and everything of its age really, really, really well. It tells a very good story about him, and they didn't try to update the character. They didn't try to make him something he wasn't. They just told a really good story about a guy in his last years. Now they can take that same respect for the character, respect for the world that they created in the first movie, and they can take that and bring that to the Last Starfighter. And if they go that kind of, I don't mean that they have to tell the same sort of story as Rocky Balboa, but they have to approach it with the same level of respect, the same level of just accepting the fact that, okay, this is many years later, and just tell that kind of a story. Tell that kind of story with that kind of heart, and not worry so much about it being flashy or relevant or whatever. Tell the good story. Tell the good story, and it will be relevant.
Right.
Period.
Right. And you can do that and pass the buck, because if should this be really successful and they want to try to continue it, you can pass the buck to a new generation.
Yep.
And still respect the original generation's characters.
Yes.
This is something that I believe Kathleen Kennedy from Star Wars definitely fell horribly flat on. In fact, she did. One of the reasons why you see a group like, for example, the Fandom Menace, is because that people like myself and many other people are outraged by how they treated, the Disney trilogy treated the original characters. This is one of the reasons. She
screwed the pooch so bad.
I remember you and I were talking about that. Growing up, Star Wars is one of like my original sci-fi favorites. Star Wars and Star Trek, and then The Last Starfighter were my big three. And I didn't get into Doctor Who until their 50th anniversary, which is that's a story all its own. But the big three to me was The Last Starfighter, Star Wars, and Star Trek. That was the ones that I watched and anticipated the most. I read books about it. I've watched every single Star Trek series. And later on, I ended up getting into Stargate. Stargate's another one I really love. But when growing up, because the original Stargate didn't come out till I was 16. But as a kid, Star Trek and Star Wars were my big thing. And I remember anticipating, especially after the prequels came out, it's like, okay, if there's going to be a sequel trilogy, I cannot wait to see Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher back together again and being complete and utter just badasses and just, fighting whatever remnant comes up from the Empire or whatever, if it was supposed to be based on the EU. And what we got was just, Luke drinking green milk, throwing his saber, Han dying, and then, Carrie Fisher basically carrying the weight of everybody, and then this Ray Sue character is just absolutely disgusting. I was so heartbroken over that situation, and so naturally, and then I'm not even going to get into Star Trek Discovery and Picard, those trash heaps of what's supposed to be Star Trek. But what it brought me to was the fact that when I watched Nerd Cookie's video about The Last Starfighter 2, naturally, I think my camera froze. Oh, there I am.
There you go.
Naturally, I'm like, oh no. Okay, are they gonna make this woke like every other thing that I've been seeing recently? But given the article I read about it and given the Nerd Cookies video, I'm thinking that there may be a chance it might not be that way.
It sounds like they're interested in going the Rocky Balboa route, or the actual Ghostbusters sequel. That I don't know where that is right now.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think it's just in. I think it's just in stasis because of COVID, like so many other movies. But at least based on
that was amazing.
The trailer looks like it's going exactly the right kind of route that the 2016 female Ghostbusters actively avoided going.
Right.
It's based on respect for the original characters, the original stories, and the audience.
Yes.
as opposed to saying, "Here is what I believe you should believe," and open your mouth so I can cram it right down your freaking throat.
Exactly. I'm, not going to mention, Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah.
Now, why not? But yeah, from listening to again the Nerd Cookies video and the interviews with the actors that I listened to right after that, it sounds a lot like they are going the right route with this. That there is genuine passion for the story, and they've part of the reason it's taken so long is just they want to tell the right story.
Exactly.
And of course you got to be able to shop around and get somebody to buy off on it. And sometimes it takes 20 years for a cult, 20, 40 years for a cult classic to finally convince studio execs that no, it really does have an audience big enough to support doing a sequel. Well, look at how it did in the original box office. Okay, one, that was 40 years ago, Jack Wagon.
Right.
Two, hey, how much money have you made off of DVD sales of this thing?
Oh yeah. I own the special edition DVD of it.
As do I.
Yeah, and I got to introduce it to my children, and they both loved it. My two older children love it, and it was just that, and that was such a great moment to be able to share this with my kids, saying this is what I grew up with, and even though like both my kids were understanding of the CGI at the time because obviously they what they watch now is light years ahead of it, but at the same time they appreciated the story. They thought it was intriguing. They cracked up at the funny moments, and they overall enjoyed the film. And the idea of it possibly having a sequel that's going to fit into their time, passing it off to possibly a new generation, I think it would be hopefully just the same type of reaction I had with Star Wars, because I introduced them to Star Wars. I showed them the original trilogy, then the prequel trilogy, and then we anticipated episode 7, and we watched episode 7. We're like, okay. And then episode 8, I'm like, oh, I'm about ready to throw something.
That was one that initially I was okay with it, but the more I thought about it, I was like, no, it's really pretty bad.
Well, episode 7, I was cautiously optimistic. Episode 8, I was just like, okay, you just screwed Luke right up.
Yeah.
I was already mad that Han was gone, but I knew I was going to do this. I didn't want to jump into rant about Star Wars, but then again, it does connect into why I'm so on the fence about the whole sequel here with Last Starfighter. But speaking of that, I'll shift gears because I can rant about Star Wars all day.
Who can't?
Yeah, I know. Considering, I mean, it's just one of those things where it just felt like, they just slapped the fandom in the face. However, I think what these guys are, because you mentioned the Rocky Balboa route, I think what these guys are going to do with this one is they realize, they've had time to actually watch what happens with Star Trek and Star Wars, for example, and Doctor Who. And they could see it's like, okay, well, you know what? They kind of went this route, and now they've lost a whole bunch of people. We want the opposite. We want to gain a whole bunch of people for this. So wouldn't
that be weird?
Yeah. It's what can we do to actually bring forth a new generation and not tick off the old generation?
Yeah.
And so if they're looking to accomplish that, and I think they could, especially since the original writer is going to be involved in this. And this has been going in the making for a while. They've been stewing on this since at least, the early 2000s. So there's some huge potential here. And I definitely am anxious to see where they're going to take this. I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, did you read the sci-fi article?
I did not. No.
Okay. I actually got it here. I'm going to do a share screen here. See if I can pop it up. Yep. There we are. I got the original sci-fi article that talked about it, which I thought was pretty cool that it was sci-fi. But I'm reading some of it, it says it's been a couple years since we've heard anything, but it looks like the sequel to the 1980s cult film Last Starfighter is still moving forward. In an interview with Movie Hole, Jonathan R. Bitu, the writer of the original film, I probably butchered his name, but he shed some light on the sequel status, which he is co-writing with Rogue One, a Star Wars story screenwriter Gary Whitta. Now, I don't know what you think of that.
It's the best of the Disney era Star Wars movies.
I agree. Just the Vader scene alone, I remember that actually gave me chills. Because my kids and I actually watched it in the theater. My son loved it. My daughter hated it.
What?
Yeah, my daughter hated it because it was so dark. It was a really dark Star Wars story.
Yep. And honestly, I was expecting and hoping it would be darker.
Well, yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and you know what? To each their own. I liked it. It was my favorite Disney Star Wars to come out, and I thought it was well done. Again, that Vader scene alone was worth the price of admission. I loved it.
Yes.
And apparently
it was.
Apparently, now do you watch Mandalorian?
Yes.
Okay. I have not seen the final episode. My kids and I are going to watch that, but I saw clips because the internet, and apparently there's a similar scene with Luke that I'm dying to watch.
It is. Put it this way: it is the scene you have been waiting for since Return of the Jedi.
Oh, well, I will embrace that with open arms. I know that I heard a lot of mixed reviews from people that I follow on Twitter. But I'm just going to I'll enjoy it for what it's worth. If that's what we get at this point, then I won't complain for now.
There's a couple of quibbles with the episode as a whole, but that scene, I'm sorry, if you don't absolutely love that scene, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I know.
That's all I got to say.
First of all, the green lightsaber is my absolute favorite lightsaber. And just to see Luke in his prime just totally wield that and start wiping things out with it.
He doesn't even break a sweat.
Oh, and I love that.
You know, Anakin in the Clone Wars?
Yes.
Yeah.
That type of
that type of utter badassery.
I will check that out when I get a chance. My kids and we watch it together, and my kids haven't had a chance to, but I need to pull the dad card and be like, okay, we need to watch this. I'm just going to watch it on my own, and we'll watch it together whenever they can.
Pull it immediately.
I'm
like honestly, stop the show now, log off, and go watch it because it's really good.
I will. I think I might actually do that. If not, I might watch it first thing tomorrow morning when I get up. I'll just see.
There you go. Watch that with your morning coffee. Anyway, yes, back to Starfighter.
I'm going to Starfighter. Back to Starfighter. I'm just reading different parts of the article, which I wanted. I didn't know if you knew that Gary Whitta was possibly going to be involved. So if that's the case, there's going to. I think that will add a really awesome element to the sequel. It says it looks like we'll be making the deal to get it going, and I'm going to say Batul. I'll say Batul for now. I will probably be corrected later.
That sounds good.
Yeah, we'll say Batul. But it says Gary's a gifted collaborator. We'll be writing the script together, but it's taking a long time. I had to go through a process that took years to recapture the rights, which they just did.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know that was a big thing with.
Yep.
Why it has taken a very long time. It was a rights issue, and I'm sure he wants creative control of it.
Yes, and I'm glad he did, because I know that's a big, huge battle he was going with. It says it looks like we really got a good opportunity now, so I'm really looking forward to taking it up. The sequel has faced stormy weather in the past, with its co-writers working to place a new script for at least a couple of years now. And while there was rumors that the sequel would be on the small screen rather than the large one, Batul puts the rest to speculation that the installment in the Last Starfighter universe will be on TV. This is a movie with all its bells and whistles, and it won't presuppose that you've seen the original film, he said. There will be references here and there, but it will carry the saga forward. So I think that may be a good thing, if at least for them, I guess. The original film revolves around Lance Guest, Alex Rogan, a young man who destroys the high score on the video game, only to find out that it's actually being used to find recruits for intergalactic war. While the film didn't fare all that well commercially when it was first released in 1984, it has since cultivated a fervent fan base. Hence the cult following you and I just mentioned.
Yes.
So while Batur makes it clear that the sequel can be enjoyed as a standalone film, he did confirm that some of the characters from the original will carry over. The leads are now parents and time has passed, Batul explains. It's not a remake. It's going to continue the story, praise God.
Yes.
What's changed is time itself. Certainly as the video world and the alien world have continued to tick away, it's not a time capsule of the 80s by any means. We're taking it to the next level, passing the torch or the joystick. Anyway, it says the sequel is still in the very early stages, obviously, so there's no confirmation on if or when the new film will be released. Fans of the first film, however, still have the original. With its cheesy special effects aside, remains quite a fun watch. All right.
Darn right. So, What do we see? What does the sequel look like? What's the kind of story then? What's the conflict? Oh, that's the big thing. What's the conflict here?
Well, okay, so given the Kodan, all right, this is a long time because Zur escaped, and I'm assuming that Zur is actually, leading the charge again against the Star League.
What I think as well.
It says it's going to have some of the original characters, so I'm assuming, Zor's the guy that plays Zor's in his 70s, I believe. It's pretty much a toss-up whether he's still going to be around or if they're going to have somebody else play him or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But regardless, okay, so we're talking almost 40 years. And by the time, because it's not even in the production process yet. So you're talking probably, if they got started right now, maybe 4 years? 2 to 4 years, depending.
You could do it in 2, but 4 years is probably more logical.
Okay, so now you've got the Kodan Armada. Zur escaped, and that's where they left it. So are they building back the Star League?
Well, presumably the Star League would already be rebuilt. It's been a minute. The Kodan is, I think, to me, is a bigger question. Because certainly he destroyed at least an armada.
Oh, yeah.
Is it the whole Kodan Armada? I don't think so.
No.
Because they did have an emperor.
Right.
That who had put Zur in charge of that particular armada. Which presumably, again, because you definitely get the sense that the Star League and the Star League and the Kodan are the primary rivals within the galaxy. Right. So obviously, they definitely sent their biggest fleet against Rylos. I don't think that's even in question.
Right.
Now, whether or not it was everything they had, that's something else altogether. It's entirely possible that the Kodan had to rebuild just as much as the Star League, or almost as much.
Right, because Alex Rogan definitely devastated their fleet destroyed their mothership, devastated the fleet. But obviously, there's more. Just like I believe there's more Star League. There's going to be more Kodan, and and since that obviously didn't make the Kodan happy, but the impression I get from the Kodan is that they're similar to probably the Klingon Empire, is that they're a warrior race of some kind, not quite as fierce as the Klingons, it looks like, but obviously they have a kind of a hierarchy where, obviously they have an emperor, so it means an empire. They're imperialistic. So that means that
you get the impression that they have a sense of honor.
Yes.
Just from the way that they clearly don't like Zur at all.
No, you could tell just by, it's like, oh my gosh, we really have to work with this guy, which makes me wonder, do they have a disdain for, the only reason why the Emperor would use Zur is because Zur can get them in, he can, he's a, is it Rylian? I can't remember. I believe. Rylan. He can get, he's a Rylan that's going traitor, so he's got valuable information. Obviously the son of the leader, you know, and so he's probably just having to just use him as much as he possibly can. But the impression I'm getting is that it's just a matter of convenience. It's not a matter of whether he really thinks highly of Zor, because obviously Zor is arrogant and reckless, and he's
a prick.
Kodan their fleet.
Now, what is interesting, and this is something that I really hope gets explored more, is the fact that, you know, Zor says there are many Rylans who would welcome a return, Father. And in fact, he has someone on the inside. That's how they're able to destroy the Star League so easily, is because they blow up their guidance system for their defensive weaponry.
Right.
And presumably that's not the only one. Presumably there's some sort of rebellion building within Rylos, if not the entire Star League at the time. Now, has that grown? Has that gone underground? Or I wouldn't be surprised actually if that winds up being a bigger issue in the sequel than the Kodan Armada.
Right.
One, because I don't want to see the same story told again.
Right.
Where it's where it's just straight up Star League versus the Kodan. Obviously, we're not going to get the same kind of recruitment story that we got before. That's not going to happen. But I don't want to see just, you know, Star League versus the Kodan again. I would like to see it take a different route, and I think that little rebellion within the Star League is a potentially good way to go, and maybe Zor makes more use of that than anything else. And it might even just be a rebellion within Rylos, because he does specifically say Rylans. He doesn't say there are many within the Star League that would welcome my return. He does just say Rylos, which calls into question, actually, I'm reading way too much into all of this, but it calls into question also, what is the nature of Rylos' past?
Right.
Is Rylos itself, was it in the not too distant past an empire?
Right.
And before it decided to become more of a perhaps a republic type format. You know, maybe the Galactic Federation was once the Rylan Empire.
Right. Right. I mean, here's the thing. You've got a history now you get to explore between Rylos and the Kodan Armada. Like why are Rylos and the Kodan at each other's throats? Also, as you said, what's Rylos' history that there's actually a rebellion forming, that there's, you know, people rebelling at what looks like a galactic federation. Okay, so, you know, if you got a group that united a whole bunch of worlds, and, you know, it's a multi-species interplanetary alliance right there. So, okay, unity is definitely part of their, I would say, like, their government, their constitution, whatever, you know, very much like a united federation of planets. They want to, my guess from the Star League is that because it's Star League, it's all encompassing many different species, that this is what they want, an interplanetary alliance. But how did they get there? Is there a faction that says, no, maybe the Rylans are just like, some Rylans are like, oh no, we don't want anything to do with other species. We want to be, dominant. You know, we have this technology, you know, maybe it's because they're the most powerful and most advanced in technology. It's like, no, why are we sharing this with other races? We should be our own empire. That might be a good storyline to explore, you know, but obviously since Zor, you know, and what's Zor's motivation? Because, you know, that explores a couple different things. Either Zor didn't care that he was allying himself with another species just to get to Rylos, or Zor only did it because he needed an inroad to take Rylos for his own, I'm totally blamed for basically his own pleasure. He wants
his own ego, essentially.
His own ego. He wants to he wants to be the new Rylos emperor. Yeah, so to speak.
And, talking through this, it actually makes me really appreciate how good actually the world building was in this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is. There are these little hints in everything of a wider history, a wider world going on within that very small self-contained story of a simple kid getting lifted out of his trailer park to save the galaxy.
Right.
But gosh, yeah, there really are these hints and everything of a much bigger story taking place all around this. And the fact that that's there, I think, is obvious. The fact that's done so successfully and so subtly
Right.
is definitely part of what makes that movie what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I watch a movie and I'm like, it was good, but you get the sense that it's like it could have been better. There was something missing, but by golly, I can't put my finger on it. It's that kind of thing. It's that kind of subtle world building that I think a lot of those movies that are good, but they could have been great, but you're not sure what they're missing. I think they're missing some of that very subtle world building,
right,
that isn't essential to the primary story that you're telling, but it's what gives that story. It helps give that story a depth that it would be lacking otherwise.
right.
And it's something that I think a lot of times you pick up on it subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated where they could. I mean, there's so many different routes they could take this. Talking about like the factions that obviously Rylan, a possible building up of a civil war.
Yeah.
Maybe just within Rylos, and not so much the rest of the planets that are involved into it.
Be a good way to keep the budget low, but they can't just do that because there's no way they're giving us the last Starfighter sequel without Gunstars.
Oh yeah, you gotta. Come on.
There's got to be a space battle in there.
Well, yeah. Well, the picture that I have, I don't know if that's concept art, like the thumbnail I put for this video. That's one of the pictures is a bunch of Gunstars on a platform, and I don't know if that's concept art for a possible sequel or not. But imagine like them building up a fleet again. Which again, it baffles me how like a Rylos being attacked and there's only like one Gunstar left out of that, and that's what they have, where it's like, okay, do you not have a fleet somewhere else? But the other part I was thinking of, there's since obviously the Star League has like a code or a prime directive, we don't mingle with worlds that are outside our Star League, because Earth had like what Grieg said, Earth had yet to mature, which I don't even know how they would feel about us now. Giving
worse.
Climate.
Worse.
Oh, God.
They're regressing. You know what?
Yeah.
Screw it. Meteor gun them.
Meteor gun them.
Get them out of our hair.
Let's do these guys. Let's do Earth a favor and just meteor gun these guys, because I can't imagine if we were approached by the Star League now. But I guess maybe we have been. I guess from what I'm hearing, there's the government's confirming.
According to certain former high-ranking Israeli officials.
I guess maybe we already have. I don't know, but as far as Last Starfighter is concerned, what's going to be Earth's role in contributing to?
Good question.
Because if you think about it, okay, well, they recruited Alex Rogan. Alex Rogan is obviously a hero to the Rylans, and so I'm thinking that they're going to involve the brother one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Obviously, there is children involved between Alex and Maggie.
Oh, obviously.
That, will take some reign. Where they're going to take that, I'm not too sure. Like one aspect could be like, they have a couple of children and one goes the way of Zor and the other one goes the way of the Star League.
They could do that.
That'd be an interesting twist too. Maybe one kid's like, oh, well, like Zor is, his following is almost cult-like. So maybe it's like, they're alluring, the Rylans really actually are not, they're not all that they claim up to be, maybe there is a dark history, like you said, there was an empire and then they decided to be a republic or something. Yeah,
it just occurred to me. Dangerous part of that kind of storyline, that is exactly where you introduce that is a very tempting avenue to introduce wokeism.
Ah, yes. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
on its own, on its simply on its own, it's a perfectly good story idea. But
Mhm.
ooh,
There is a couple of doors that could open
yeah,
because of it.
yeah.
And yeah, you're right, because oh gosh, I don't even wanna imagine.
But here's the thing that I want out of this more than anything. I want to see, if not Alex Rogan himself, he and Maggie's kids. I want little Rogans leading the star, leading the Star League against whichever bad guy it is, whether it's a resurgent Kodan Armada or something
Mhm.
entirely different. Actually, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we find them leading uh, um, a collaborative effort, shall we say, between the Star League and the Kodan Armada against a third, scarier foe.
Right.
But I want little Rogans leading the charge. I want them in the best, coolest, most awesome gun stars that they have come up with in the 40 years since. Just
Yes.
and in the end, it's them who it's the little Rogans who save the day and lay waste to whoever the enemies are. They don't have to
Yep.
be the last one,
Right.
but they have to. It has to be because of whatever it is that they do.
Mhm.
Because
Focus.
they're just such. In fact, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be cool if it was if Alex and Maggie have a couple of kids and one's the starfighter and one's the navigator?
Right. Right. Yeah, there's equal talent sharing in between the both of them, and then they were
Mm-hmm.
able to, maybe there's a like, you can actually even develop kind of a rival between the kids. It's
Mm-hmm.
like one's definitely good at shooting, the other one's definitely good at piloting, but they
Mm-hmm.
kind of have like, a sibling rivalry between the two,
Right.
and then they ended
Which
up
one's
coming
more
together.
important and all of
Yeah,
that?
like, oh, like I obviously I'm the way of dad,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a great gunner, and it's just like, well, I'm the way of Grieg, I'm a great
Yeah.
navigator, and they can kind of build off of each other, and to a point like, oh, there's it'd be like a kind of like a subplot thing. They're competing with each other, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time still trying to fight whatever enemies coming at them, whether it's Kodan or something else.
Yep.
Which you brought another good point. Like, imagine if something bigger comes along that forces the Kodan and the Star League to have to work together, for, like, because that this is a big galaxy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what if there's something else that the Kodan weren't expecting, or even something like the Kodan were being decimated by this new enemy,
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
Starleague's like, okay, well, because being as good as they are, like, shoot, like, they're eventually going to come after us. We need to jump
Yeah.
in and actually kind of go the way of Star Trek in some cases, where they come in like with the Klingons, and eventually,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
despite, I mean, there's still going to be rivalries, but they end up like coming
Mm-hmm.
to a point where it's like, okay, we're gonna come together and fight this new phenomena that just showed up, that's going to destroy our galaxy if we
Yeah.
don't do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be, if that's not in the sequel, maybe something further down the line, if the sequel actually works, maybe do a third, and they have to come to a point where it's like, oh, now the Kodan are going to be wiped out, and the Star League, they couldn't bring themselves to just watch them just to be destroyed, because they also know in their own agenda, they're going to be like, okay, well, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
come after us. They'll do the same thing to
Mm-hmm.
us, you know.
Yep.
So that would be another good possibility. But
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking too, like, okay, how could they? Okay, here's a question: should they involve Earth in the sequel in a more prominent role?
Should they? I
If
don't
if you
know.
ask
In
if
all
you asked me this
honesty,
question if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, get Earth more involved. That would be kind of like, yeah, like, maybe start recruiting other people. Like, we entertain the idea of, the Star League becomes desperate again, and they want to get more
mm-hmm.
people, and it's like, okay, well, Alex
Right.
Rogan's obviously pretty good. There's got to be more than one. I mean, there's 6 billion people on that planet. Maybe there's
Right.
bound to be another Alex Rogan, but the downside to that is that you involve Earth in 2020 or whatever year it is.
Yeah. I,
I don't
regardless
like
of
how we
that, I mean, I don't. I don't know. I mean, could it almost seems like involving Earth would be, frankly, a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Now they'll want to do it to ground it and make it relatable and everything. So I think Earth will be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But I don't know in what sense. I don't know how to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would seem that Earth would have to be involved differently than
Right.
before.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know.
Because
I
Earth,
really,
like, I can't stand, like, I mean, I like the idea of recruiting, like, average people like us.
Mhm.
Not so much getting the government involved in this whole
Right.
situation, because the government just screw everything up, but actually recruiting everyday people, whether it's Americans or other countries, and start getting them more involved into something bigger, maybe, kind of classifying it or something like that. Hey, we're just going to show up and we're not going to tell the people around, kind of like what they did with Alex. He just showed up, Centauri showed up and picked him up, and no one
Right.
knew anything.
Right.
They just, okay, and they
Yeah.
now, in fact, they were bent on doing that. They created the beta unit just for that purpose, so that no one would suspect anything. They didn't want anybody to know, or at least Centauri did. It wasn't actually, I guess it wasn't granted. Now that I think about it, it wasn't.
No, it was not an approved Star League op. That's for sure.
But beta units are something that I guess the Star League does use in situations like that, I suppose, because obviously they were available and they're highly advanced. So
Yep.
it would make sense if it wasn't just a Centauri thing, but maybe the Star League uses them for covert operations or something.
That I would believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
That actually
that's the
makes
other thing
sense.
too. That's another thing to explore. Beta units. I mean, you saw how advanced the beta unit was. Like, can you imagine, like, maybe beta units becoming self-aware and be like, okay, wait a minute, the Star League doesn't allow us to fight. What the heck are we doing here? Maybe some of them want to have a bigger purpose in
Beta unit revolt.
Yeah, a beta unit. That'd be another one that you can, because I was thinking about that. It's like,
Of
okay,
course, then it becomes iRobot or something, and
yeah, and but not really so much.
becomes Terminator.
But that could be, again, it depends on where they take it. Are they going to make this a movie? I mean, they're going to make it into a movie, but if it explodes, will they make it into a series? Who knows? I mean, there's potential depending on how successful this sequel does.
Yeah. I mean, man, there's a lot of different ways they could go with it, and I'll be darned if I have the slightest idea which way they are going to go with it.
Oh, there's so many possibilities with it.
Yeah, there are a lot of possibilities, and I am really excited to see what it is they do come up with at the end of the day. It is going to be extremely interesting. I really hope that they do this sooner rather than later.
Right.
And because I want to see this. I want to see this before I die, by golly.
I am the fact that this has been green lit. I mean, it's in the early stages right now. So I pray that they get the approval and the budget that they want. But obviously, one big thing I do not want to see is any type of wokeness at all. Or at least woke, because it is Hollywood. So the thing is that that's going to have an influence. But if there is just a point where it's like, wokeness is in our culture, whether we like it or not, we're going to encounter it.
Yeah.
But we're talking like wokeness that's not shoved in our face. Obviously there's going to be mentions, and there's going to be,
right.
It's part of reality at this point in time.
Yeah.
But not the central focus. Like, we need to be diverse. We need to have blacks. We need to have Hispanics. We need to have whites. We need whatever.
Let's not have the Star League as female.
Oh, Lord. Oh, again, that's so, and like a lot of the women I talk to that are Star Wars fans are really insulted by that. It's like, why are you making such an emphasis? Like when Kathleen Kennedy's doing the whole Force is female thing, which the Force is not a gender. It's
right.
And so you get stuff like that. And again, it's just pandering to these woke feminist crowd, which is a crowd that, one, is not all that big, not as big as what they claim to be.
No.
And also, it's it doesn't bring in the money. If you think about it, that's why the whole phrase "go woke, go broke" is in existence, because it does not bring the money.
No, it doesn't. It certainly does not. And it's really interesting, though, that so many places keep insisting that it will.
Right. I mean,
it's very strange, and it's the fact that get woke, go broke is kind of a thing, is something that does give me hope for the future, because as Bill Whittle recently pointed out in the episode of his Moving Back to America podcast, regardless of how people are voting right now, when it comes to stories, they're voting with their money. And the way that people are voting with their money, like the average normal person who isn't plugged into politics and everything like that and paying attention to everything every day, is seeing these wokeified versions of whatever it is they grew up with, or even brand new worries, and they're rejecting them. And it's because those stories don't resonate. Those stories are antithetical to human nature more often than not, and people just have no interest in it. People want to quote, I think it was Jeremy Johns talking about The Mandalorian, people want their heroes to be heroic.
Right. This isn't pandering to a certain political crowd of any kind. This is basically something that everybody can sit down and just enjoy, especially if it's told right. You know, you don't need, and again, I know this is primarily where Hollywood is at right now, but Hollywood needs to get out of their bubble and realize there's other people besides them in the world, which is, unfortunately, they're in their own bubble. This is why I believe why Star Wars, Star Trek, and all them are going down this road, is because, well, they need to think like us. They're trying to evangelize their wokeness, is basically what they're doing.
Yes, that is exactly correct. Yes.
And so in that effort, it's like, well, this is the way to go. I mean, people need to wake up to what they think is reality, and so we're going to just keep throwing it into your face, whether it costs us money or not, because money's not that big of a deal to us, because everybody should have the same amount. That's why they're so communistic and socialistic. But then they realize, some people are waking up and realizing, oh, wait a minute, we can't afford to do anything now because people aren't buying our stuff. Eventually it's going to stink up to them so bad that it's like, okay, well, we need to change something, or else we're just going to crash and burn, and then we won't be able to do anything anymore. And so hence why I'm seeing things like probably like influence on The Mandalorian. Mandalorian is probably one of the most tolerable Disney Star Wars things out there at this point in time, even though there's still a lot of division about it. The storyline still keeps my attention. It doesn't make me sick like the Disney trilogy does. In fact, I mean, I'll make a confession. I never watched the third one. I was so disgusted with the second one. I just couldn't bring myself to even watch the third.
I wanted to see if Abrams could pull it out, and no. No, he didn't. And
a lot of people who I trust and value, whose opinions a lot of people whose opinions who I value at this point in time. I can't talk tonight. Wow, it's obviously getting late for me. But people who I respect said that it was not. They watched it just to see it, but it wasn't even worth the time.
There's a couple of good moments in it, but it's just a couple of good moments.
Right. It's still very much tainted, with the Disney junk that they did with the other two. Rian Johnson really he screwed the pooch bad.
Oh my gosh. What was Kennedy thinking, letting him just do whatever he wanted?
Really, with I would tolerate some of the wokeness Mary Sue stuff if you made it okay. I knew we'd come back here, but oh well. I'm just going to say it. Ray, I get it. There's a lot of focus. They call her Ray Sue, and I agree with them. But if you still made the original characters what we wanted them to be, just in their prime, just even in this day, like, make Han Solo and Luke just totally a master Jedi, just all powerful, and make him into basically the badass that he was supposed to be. And obviously same thing with Princess Leia and all that. I would be okay with Rey. I would be okay with there's other characters I liked Finn, I liked Poe, but the fact that they just crapped on these characters is what really upset me. That they just basically just like, they crapped on the characters to kind of push their creation up. I'm sorry, but it was just such poor writing, and it caused so much division. And I'm sorry, but that just flushed Star Wars down the toilet for me. And I was very cautious about Mandalorian. I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch a couple episodes. I'll see. And then I was like, you know what? I'm okay with this for now. Let's see where they go. And I haven't been disappointed so far.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this a little bit, probably off air, but there's a line in the Mandalorian season finale. Yeah. That Luke delivers. It is shots fired right at the heart of the sequels.
Oh, that's good.
Shots. And that was my first thought. I heard that. I was like, did I just hear what I heard? Yes, I did. It's like, that's like that's basically going right up to Rey and slapping her right in the face. I'm not even joking.
Oh, praise God.
It was beautiful. And there's other hints that we'll talk about afterwards because it's obviously off topic.
Well, then on that note, which means that there's hope. There's hope for this sequel, I believe.
Yes, I would agree.
You and I being huge Starfighter fans, I am looking forward to seeing where they're going to take this, and I hope they do it, within a couple of years. To pray that they stay greenlit and they go forth with the project. So, which means that there's hope that they can really pull this awesome thing off. So we entertained some storylines. Maybe we ought to just email them and just kind of send some suggestions.
Guys, we're helping you brainstorm.
Yes.
I just want a credit. That's all.
Yes. And you know what? We are not alone in this. I've talked to a few other people about this, and they're really excited about the project. So let's hope they take it down a really good path. So
absolutely.
That's an awesome way to end this broadcast today. So I am grateful to be able to talk with you about this. This has been a long time coming. I'm sure I will check out your, please tell me what the animation or the anime that you're talking about, the sci-fi.
Star Blazers. Yes.
Star Blazers. I will check out Star Blazers and I will definitely let you know. But until then, till next time when we get together, we'll talk about whatever other topic. It was nice to take a break from politics, although we kind of touched a little bit on it. Not to the extent, but I guess staying in the entertainment end.
Yes.
So to everyone watching, you guys all take care and God bless.